Good evening, good people. Parenting After Dark family. I hope all is well. Happy Sunday evening. I hope you had a great week. I hope your weekend is ending well as we are approaching Monday. Um, Monday used to be one of those days for me that I was like dreading because I didn't want to go to work. Um, Now I see things totally different. I am so appreciative of every day, every hour, and just thankful that I even have a Monday, that I even have a job, that I'm even doing the things that I enjoy doing, like getting on the podcast every Sunday and connecting with everyone here and giving guidance and support to all you great parents out there. So I'm super happy about that, super grateful, and I'm again very thankful. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time to just come on and learn some new things. I want you guys to really share your thoughts and your ideas, your opinions. Um, just what's going on, what works for you, or maybe some of the things that you found challenging, not even just about parenting, but just in life in general. I think, that was one of the hardest things for me was to kind of separate in a sense of me as a woman, as a person, as Antoinette, um, from, parenting. And I always kind of like just, mixed it all in together, but we are individuals and we have dreams and hopes and goals and ideas and thoughts and opinions, and sometimes a lot of times we put that on the back burner so that we can be the best parents we can be, or maybe that's a hope, for some of us, is to to become more parent minded and to be the best parent that we can be. But whatever the case is, we're still individuals, right? We still have our own personality and insight. And so I just wanted to take this time to just give you a warm greeting. My name is Antoinette Clay. I'm the host of Parenting After Dark. Welcome again. Thank you for joining. Thank you for um, again taking the time to be a part. And I am looking forward to tonight. So I started off last week talking about influence, and if you didn't catch it, you can go and see last week's episode where I just started talking in general about influence. And I wanted to continue because there are some things that I believe are worth mentioning that we need to think about when it comes to our families, our children, specifically, the teens. And that's where my focus is with this podcast. People and parents of teens, because that is the stage right before adulthood. So they are going into adulthood, and a lot of the thoughts and ideas that they have gained from the environment that they're in, from the culture that is very prevalent in today's age. This culture is very different, just like the culture of years past. In the 60s, it was all about the war and freedom and civil rights. Culture plays a very big role and has a very huge influence in the lives of our young people. And so I thought it was befitting to talk about that and to use this time to really kind of go into that aspect of influence. And the question is, who is your teen listening to? They're listening to somebody. There's somebody that they have an ear to listen to. And so I want to encourage parents to take more of an active involvement in playing or being the most influential influence, if I can say that, the most influential influence in your teens' lives. Because at the end of the day, And I'm going to share some thoughts. Um, at the end of the day, I want us to understand that you really only kind of get one shot at doing things. And so it's not about being perfect. It's not about, checking off things on a list. It's not about competition and anything like that. It's really about making impact, really guiding your teens to make impact in their lives so that they can make healthier choices, they can make better choices, they can really thrive in life. They can really be successful. And I'm not talking about successful in the definition of what the world considers successful, because that word, just like the word happy or just like the word, uh, what's another word we can use that's sort of interchangeable? Happy, successful, rich, right? That's an individual. Those are individual things that we can make on our own. Meaning that my definition of successful may be just to finish school and work in the field that I love. Someone else's definition of successful, right? For them, maybe just to you know open a thriving business and be an entrepreneur and being good at that, right? Being great at that, mastering that in a sense. And so I like looking up definitions because it's important. But specifically with this word influence, I took the time and I just kind of researched the word influence. And of course, it has a Latin derivative to it. But the influence, I mean, it says influence is to flow into or pour into or in or on, right? And so thinking about that, if you look at, the things that influence society, you have political views, you have um, uh, personal views, right? You have religious views. And all of these things play a role in how we are influenced as a society. But I want to say this: the main core of society is the family. That means the family is where everything starts, where everything begins. Our moral standards, our, social ability and social skills to interact, our, the ways in which we relate and have relationships, it starts within the family. And so it's important to recognize that that family connection is powerful when you talk about influence, right? What your parents believed, what your parents taught you, and so forth. And so for tonight, I wanted to just dive a little bit into the definition of influence. And like I said, it says to flow into or pour into, or, yeah, to flow into, to pour into, um, or pour in, or pour on. And so when you think about that, and you can take any person that you know who you may know is famous, famous people, you know, celebrities do this all the time. They have this influence because they're able to really kind of hone in on, people's imaginations of who they like to be and who they want to be, right? And so that really kind of really nails it for them. They dive into the identity of that person. And I wanted to make that connection because as I was researching and really thinking about this, in the biblical sense, Jesus also ties influence into identity. In Matthew 5:13 through 16, it talks about being the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And that's very powerful because salt has influence. It has the capacity to change the environment in which it is. Being the light also has influence because light reveals what's there. And so the fact that he uses these two particular definitions to talk about those who are believers, right? He's saying this is who you are. It's not about becoming that, it's who you are. And that alone is enough to influence the lives of our families. Now, you can use that in any capacity, even if you are on a job or if you are interacting with people through maybe some type of civic association or a church, right? But when it comes to our children, we set the example by being the salt, by being the light, and having that influence. And we need to know that, and we need to have that understanding and grasp what that really means. Because you're vying for your child's attention, you're vying for their belief system, which is at the core of who they are, right? Of who we all are, is what we believe and what we know to be true. And so, if the wrong influence, another kind of salt, another kind of light, is influencing them, it's going to motivate them to go in directions that are totally against, you know, what you have put in them and what you have nurtured in them. And now you may have a child taking more risky behavior, doing more things to prove themselves, you know, acting a certain way because now it's not about an identity of change, but one of I gotta prove who I am. I gotta, I gotta make a name for myself. I gotta let people know I'm not a punk. I gotta let them know that I'm not this, I'm not that. That I'm this and I'm that. And that I have this kind of whatever. And so now you have a young person that's going off track because the influence that has impacted their life has basically encouraged them to believe a lie about who they are. And so now sleeping with people and going, to parties and doing all of this stuff, and I got to make a name for myself in the streets, and I got to make a name for myself over here, and people need to know I'm a baddie, and all of these things. Now you have someone going in the opposite direction. The influence, the person who's had their ear, the person who's been the salt in their life, who has been the light in their life, is now deterring them to make other decisions. Right now, I gotta have 5, 10, 15, 20 bodies. Right now, I gotta get out here and do this thing. Right, I gotta be able to hold it down. So whether it's drinking, smoking weed, popping mollies, whatever it is, now they're going in this direction because this is who they are, who they believe that they are. So now as parents, you oftentimes parents we may not always handle things in the best way. So it's like, what are you doing? You know better, and we go on and on and on, not realizing that we're going about it the wrong way. We need to have influence. In order for you to have influence, thank you, Lord, you have to have presence. You have to have presence. And that just dropped in my heart. Presence allows you to have influence. If you notice the behavior of some young people, they spend hours listening to a particular song or artist. That's hours that they're listening to slap my booty, whatever, blah, blah, blah. driving, drinking, on the road with my 40 or whatever that those lyrics are. They're spending hours and they're listening to it. And in their mind, it's forming imagination. So as they nodding and as they listening to it, they're spending time, that presence. And that's what influence needs in order to really be birthed and acted upon in that person, that presence, because now it's going to motivate them to do whatever it is them lyrics is saying, to believe whatever it is those lyrics is saying. And so as a parent, you have to have presence in your child's life. That means you got to make it your business and be intentional about spending time with them, legitimately finding out what they like to do, coming up with a plan, sitting down and coming up with a plan and saying, yeah, um, I think, this would be great to do. Let me sit down, let me take them out to dinner, let me find out, you know, what they want to do, and let me have presence in their life. Let me make that mark in their life that they know that every week, we're doing something. And maybe your schedule doesn't allow for you to spend 2 or 3 days. And most teenagers, they love their family, but you got to give them space as well. So you don't want to kind of hoard them so they think like, okay, this is creepy, this is weird. Mom is being weird. Every day she texting me. But no, you want to keep it authentic. That means you want to keep it authentic and intentional, meaning you're now going to, again, make a plan to be in their life and to have that presence. You have to. They may kick, they may cry, they may scream, they may lie, they don't want to be with you, they got a headache, they change their mind. They're going to go through all of this, but you're fighting for their soul. You're fighting for their soul. And I like what somebody is saying here, um, saying the world makes teens believe the false image which contradicts the kingdom of kings. Yes, that's one of the things I mentioned last week, is that um, the world is basically saying that God is not real or he's boring. That's one of the biggest things, the biggest challenges, you know, in teen ministry. When I was serving in teen ministry, it was trying to keep God fresh, keep it interesting, because nobody looked at it as being interesting and being, you know, popular or cool or whatever. And so the world does that. It presents everything to these young people as cool, everything other than God, every person other than God. It presents as cool as, yeah, and, you know, um, this is what you want to do. This is how you want to go. This is how you want to be, right? It presents everything else as that. And then it presents the fact that this is a type, that this is glamorous in a way, doing all this stuff, and being all this kind of way and saying all these kind of words and using all this kind of language is saying this is the way to go, this is how you do it. And so as parents, we have to think about that. It's not about you going and telling them you can't listen to this music and you shouldn't be listening to this, and that's the devil music. That's not going to really fly, because one of the things about influence is that it really strives to, like I said, to really target the identity. So if your teenager is thinking they're sexy, they're cool, they're fly and all of that, and that's what these lyrics are saying. And the lyrics is defining what's sexy, what's cool, what's fly. The lyrics is saying what's hot and what's not, or whatever. That's not going to fly because you're saying, okay, you don't want me to listen to this music, but I identify with this music, right? There's something about these lyrics that I believe is true about me. And so I had mentioned this before, and this would take a lot of patience and understanding for parents to do, and that is to actually listen to some of the music. Find out who their favorite artists are and listen to some of the music. Listen to what they're saying. Find out, what they're really identifying with. Are they identifying with, the spirit of lust or whatever? Because that information is going to be what you use to take in your prayer closet to say, okay, Lord, they like, I forgot the young lady names, knew this young lady that's out now. I forgot her name, but they like, let's just say they like this particular artist, and this is what she's singing. You want to pray for them because that's where your source of your strength and your power to change that influence over their life is through prayer. And then you want to again have that presence in their life where you are showing them the other side and you are connecting with them and even sharing your story. There's been a lot of times when I've shared stories, about my teenage struggles with my daughter because it just brings it just really like, it's like, okay, Ma is human. She struggled too. She struggled to do right, struggled not to have sex, struggled, not to drink or whatever it is. And it was hard. We all know we've been there before. So being able to share our stories and link with them, and this is why I wanted to do it. It wasn't that I even wanted to drink, but my best friend was drinking and it was like she was more funnier when she got drunk. You'd be surprised, like go back in your mind and some of the things you did, it didn't make sense. Like now you may look at it and say, okay, that was really like just immature. But during that time, you didn't think that. Be able to come down to their level and really talk. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's not about just laying down the law. It's about connecting. Finding out why they like this particular artist. What is it about these lyrics? And you'd be surprised the meaningful, wonderful, meaningful conversations that you can have with your teen if you just took time to really connect with them. And and I want to say this, and this may be something that's obvious, but instead of just loving them, like them. Teens have this incredible, sense of, do people like me? Do they really like me? If they knew how corny or nerdy or whatever I was or weird, would they really like me? Yeah. Yeah, they would. And you be that person to lead that. You be that person to be on their cheering team to say, I like you. I like who you are as a person. I like your personality. I love your thoughts and opinions and ideas. You be that person to have that conversation and encourage that and affirm them. Because that's another thing influences us. It affirms what we already believe about ourselves, whether it's good or bad. And so I wanted to just talk about that. Next week, I'm going to continue. There's another point that I want to make that I wrote, another note that I wanted to share that I thought was really, it really kind of hit home, and I'll just read it right before I end. It says, influence is a powerful force that shapes behaviors, decisions, and outcomes in various spheres of life from leadership to business to personal relationship. And it's based on the ability to guide and inspire others through persuasion, empathy, and credibility. I want you to think about that as I wind down and end tonight. I want you to think about that. It's based on the ability to guide and inspire others. And so think about, you know, that. How can you guide and inspire your team? Because I'll tell you that one of the things um, that is very powerful is the fact that there's so much in your team that you don't even realize is there. That the world realizes, and I might cry a little bit because it just really hit me. The world realizes how much is in your kid. They're banking on it. They're banking on you not having this influence and really turning them in the right direction. They want to have that power of influence over your team because they know what they're capable of. And if you knew what was in your team, if you knew how powerful they really are, you would have a whole different tune. Don't just look at behavior, don't look at attitude, don't look at all those things. That just comes with the physical and emotional development that they go through. So some of that you just got to really turn a blind eye to, some of it. And I'm saying that respectfully. But it's up to you to know what's in your team, to speak to that, to inspire and guide them. You have that ability already because you're mommy, your daddy. You have that already. You have to build on it. And you have to be able to show them what you see. If everything that comes out of your mouth is negative, so, I don't know, I'm not sure, you're showing them who you believe they are by the way you speak to them, by the way you treat them. And so the world is going to always have this open arms, kumbaya, we love you, just come over here. Because again, it's about influencing, it's about guiding. And then that leads, thank you, Lord, that leads into motivation. So now, influencing, guiding, now I'm motivated. So it's nothing for me to do certain things anymore because that connection has been established. That connection to who I am and what I believe has been established. And now that's slowly being shaped and that's slowly now impacting, and now it's motivating me to do X, Y, and Z without any conscience, without any thought as to who I may be affecting or what I may be doing or who I may be hurting or whatever. And so I just wanted to leave you with that. I'm going to continue next week, continuing on talking about influence. So I want you to have a great week. I want you to really think about this, listen to this again, listen to last week if you missed last week, and Really think about how can you guide and inspire your team? How can you show them who they are? How can you discover what's in them? Because they can now guide and inspire and have impact in their friends' lives. And between you and your team, you guys can change your community, you can change your block, their school, you name it. So I hope that you got something. I hope that I was able to encourage you. Please, if you have questions, if you want to leave comments, if you want to share your testimony or whatever, you can email me at the number one parentingafterdark@gmail.com. And I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions, your ideas. What has worked for you? What inspires you? What can you do to inspire, or what has inspired you? And how would you guide? What are some of the things you would do to guide? And we can talk about that next week, and I can make a note to mention that. It's not hard, but it does require you to be intentional. It requires that you put some thought into this, and not just effort, but you be about it. Because again, you're counteracting what this culture is saying, and what this culture is putting out there, and what this culture is doing, and how it's impacting the lives of the young people, because they're coming behind us. And so it's really about who's got the loudest voice, yeah, but who's making that impact, who's guiding, who's inspiring. And I'm going to talk more about that next week in terms of some specifics about inspiration. So have a great week. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time to hang out and to tune in. It's been a pleasure. Have an awesome rest of your Sunday evening, and I'll see you next week right here live at 8 p.m. on Parenting After Dark.